Henry Ford and the mass production. The motor car came into the picture in 1908. Ford left his namesake company in 1902. The Ford Motor Company was established in 1903. Within a month into the buying of the Ford Motor Company, the first Ford car was established. Only a few cars were made per day in groups of 2 to 3 workers and were built by hand from parts. The Model T made its debut in October of 1908. The Model T was known as Tin Lizzie. The production of the Model T was easily made and affordable because of the assembly line. Car ownership became a reality for all Americans and not just the wealthy. More than 15 million Model Ts were made in various places. They were made from 1908 to 1927. They were prized for the low cost, durability, and etc. They had become an American folkloric symbol. The Model T was offered in various body styles. The Model T quickly became a success, so as a result, he put in practice of a mass production. The mass production cut down on time for the making of the automobiles, which made the cost stay low. The standard was set for the workers' pay, which started out at $2.34 and moves up to $5 for 9 hours. By 1918, half of the cars in America were Model Ts. Henry bought out all the minority stockholders by 1920. The production was moved to another mass industrial complex in 1927. The Model T was ceased, and then the new Model A was introduced in 1927 also. The new Model A was a better model with newer gadgets. The Ford Motor Company was the largest automotive manufacturer in the world and opened plants and operations throughout the world.
The stock market crash of 1929 was not the sole cause of the Great Depression, but it did act to accelerate the global economic collapse of which it was also a symptom. By 1933, nearly half of America's banks had failed and unemployment was approaching 15 million people. This event is also known as Black Tuesday. America and the rest of the industrialized world spiraled downward into the Great Depression. This was the deepest and longest-lasting economic downturn in the history of the Western industrialized world up to that time. Production already declined and unemployment had risen, leaving stocks in great excess of their real value. Among the other causes of the market crash were low wages, huge amounts of debts, and struggling agricultural sector, also large bank loans that could not be paid off. Billions of dollars were lost, wiping out thousands of investors, and stock tickers ran hours behind because the machinery could not handle the tremendous volume of trading. The 1920s was a quiet period in American foreign policy. The nation was at peace. The U.S. had become a world power, and it was tied to other countries by trade, politics, and shared interests. Americans lent the Allied countries $7 billion during the war. Shortly after, they lent another $3 billion. The Allies borrowed most of the money for military equipment, food, and other needs for their people. Alcohol production and sales were outlawed due to the Volstead Act. The demand for illegal alcohol led to a rise in smuggling, moonshining, and crime. In response to nativism, Congress passed a new immigration restriction in 1921 and 1924. Rural folks rejected their urban values, especially immigrants and flappers. Many rural Christians rejected the ideas that contradicted the Bible and outlawed the teaching of evolution in schools.
The American economy's growth rate in the 1920s was led by the automobile industry. The production of steel, rubber, plate glass, and other materials that went into making automobiles was greatly increased. Standardization and mass production also played a big part in the automobile production. Standardization is every car is made the same way, and mass production is using an assembly line to produce more. Everything from automobiles to washing machines to electric razors was produced by consumers, and they made thousands. Mass consumption was encouraged through advertising, which created lots of demands. The power of advertising created peace, which created a fantasy world where anything was available to everyone. During the 1920s, more women were allowed to be in the labor force during World War I. Female employment grew slowly in the 20s. Lastly, the radio began in the 20s in Pittsburgh. Motion pictures also became a major part of the entertainment industry. The print media was increased in the 20s as well. These changes made an amazing impact on America. The changes made through the economy is the reason why America is so advanced. exchange on October 29, 1929, signaled the start of the Great Depression, which was the worst economic crisis in U.S. history. Another general factor that contributed to the Depression was the get-rich-quick mentality that developed during the 1920s. Many Americans believed their fortune was just around the corner. This belief was fueled by the mass production of consumer goods, mass advertising in magazines and newspapers, and exotic silent movies telling the tales of rich and success. With this get-rich-quick attitude, many Americans began to spend what little money they had.